Are you ready?
Yeah, as ready as I'll ever be. Let's do this.
All right. You excited to be on the podcast?
Yeah, yeah. I've actually, when I've listened to quite a few of yours, I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to talk to Ryan about certain things or whatever. But
Is this one of the things that you thought we would talk about?
actually, it wasn't. So it's different. So, I mean, I'm glad, I'm like honored you asked me to do this. Oh, Sheena just walked in the room. Maybe she heard your voice. Hey,
That's fine.
Ryan.
For the people listening to this, my dad's dog just walked into the room. No, but happy Father's Day.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, I figured to me personally, there was no other better conversation to have you on the podcast than for Father's Day, and I don't know, talk about some things that you've learned and things that have happened in my life that perhaps I don't even remember. Um, and I figured it's a good excuse to go down memory road. So I hope you're excited and ready to do that.
Yeah, let's see where this conversation takes us. I mean, I'm sure after we're done, I'm going to think like, oh, I forgot this or I forgot that. But
Well, we'll do Father's Day for next year, 2024. But as you know, I'm recently married, and at some point, Kristen and I are going to start to try to have a family, and one day I'll be a father myself. And I'm into the mode now where I'm asking people like advice or what would you do in these situations, or things to do to be a better father. So I'm excited for that, and there's no one better to talk to than my dad, not just about highlights, but things you've learned and advice you would give me. And I was telling you when I asked you to be on this that how cool would it be, like 30, 40, 50 years from now, I still have this conversation and I can show my kids our conversation. So let's go ahead and get started. So as some of you may know, I have an older sister, so you were a dad before I even came along.
yeah,
And then I guess we'll start with that immediately. Like when you found out you were going to be a dad, like were you like ready for that? Were you excited, or was it like, oh no?
no. I was excited. I mean, I got so Melissa was born April 1980, and I was born 56. So I hadn't had my birthday yet in 80. So I was still 23 years old. That's pretty young. Um, you think you know what you're doing, but oh, you don't know what you don't know. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was exciting. Um, there's nothing like having a child, you know. And um, I can say like there's no book to prepare you. I guess maybe today there are, but back
Mm,
then you pretty much did pretty much by what you experienced, you know, growing up and who you were, and just tried to um, do your best, you know. So um, pretty young. You know, wasn't out of college very long. Um, had a pretty good job, you know. So we were renting an apartment, and wow, you know, learn life quickly when you have a child. So,
yeah, I mean, so you said you were 23 when you became a dad. I'm 40 and still not a dad, so I'll be 41 at the least. Um, what do you see as a pro and perhaps a con of being a little older when that first happens?
well, I think you learn so much, and you know, I mean, I can see it, and I've heard it on the podcasts. You know, all your experiences, and so um, you know, you're a lot more mature, experienced. Um, I think having three dogs will help prepare you for having children because they're a responsibility. You know, you have to take care of them. They they depend entirely on you, and so does a baby.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if there's any cons. I mean, um, you know, you've got other friends that have had children earlier, so they've had experiences with their children already. But again, you're going to be wiser. You've learned a lot. So.
Yeah. And I try to stay in shape and be young and act young. And as you know, travel as much as I possibly can, because for everything I hear when you have kids, it's especially when they're babies, you don't really get to have the opportunity to go travel across the world much anymore. So I'm trying to do that as much as possible. And thank you for watching the dogs so consistently, because I know at some point that's going to come to a halt. So,
Well, maybe it'll alter some of the trips you can take, but um, you know, I think you're going to want to take them with you where you can, where it makes sense, and have
mm.
them have the experiences young, so they're growing up in that. So,
So back to the conversation of having kids, and then I came along 2.5 years later. So having a daughter secretly, were you hoping that I was a boy?
oh, definitely. Oh, of course. Yeah. Every parent, I think, wants to have a son and daughter or daughter and son for their first two kids. So,
Did you know? I don't remember. Did you guys know that I was a boy ahead of time, or did you find out on the spot?
oh my gosh. Oh, that's so long ago. I'm pretty sure we knew. I'd have to say, I think did know it. So, um, but
Okay.
that was cool to know. So,
And for people listening, where did my name come from?
um, well, gee, that's a good question too. But I know that your mother liked the actor Ryan O'Neal, but I like the name Ryan, so I know we threw around a couple names and whatever. Um, but Ryan McGuire has a good ring to it. Sounds like an athlete, you know. There's been professional baseball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan
Mm-hmm.
McGuire.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's funny. You have your Orioles shirt on. I have my Orioles hat on. And the year that I was born, or that season, or the following season, was the last time the Orioles won the World Series. So, I mean, hopefully at some point, something we get to do in our lifetime is go to a World Series game with the
Yeah,
Orioles.
yeah. Finally, it looks like it might be able to become a reality. Yeah, I remember. I think you were in the crib still last time they were in the World Series against. They beat the Phillies. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
uh,
And it was Ripken's rookie year, too.
I even have like a Sports Illustrated magazine from that. I
Mm.
kept a couple pieces of memorabilia from way back then. So,
And I honestly get asked all the time, why are you an Orioles fan? All the time. And all I can say is, well, my dad brought me up an Orioles fan.
yeah.
My life would have been better being a Yankees fan,
It,
but it's not my fault.
well, it would have been easier. I don't know if I know so many times I think like, oh my God, look what I did to you because I was an Orioles fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have been a lot easier living in New York as a Yankee fan, and you would have seen a lot more winning.
World Series.
Yeah, and that's just to jump at. That's one of the regrets I have is I just did not. I was a Yankee fan growing up. Back then you had Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, and I mean the Yankees were it. And I used to watch watch them on TV, listen to games, going to bed at night. Um, but it just by chance I watched a game one day. Frank Robinson was playing for the Cincinnati Reds, and just the announcers talking about him, and he had an MVP. He won a triple crown that year, I think, or at least he was MVP. And they traded him to the Orioles, and that's how I became an Orioles fan. So that's just by chance. If I hadn't watched that game, probably still be a Yankee fan. But
Mm.
of course, the Orioles had some pretty darn good years back there in the mid '60s. So, but getting back, yeah, one regret I have is because I did not like the Yankees. Eventually, I never took you to Yankee Stadium for a game.
I
But
went
so
anyways, though.
I'm glad you got to see him. What were you in college before you went to Yankee Stadium? You were in
My
Buffalo?
cousin Mark and I went when Roger Clemens was facing Barry Bonds when he was in town.
Yeah.
That's back when like the intra-league was a big thing, and we wanted to go see them play. So we took a bus down to Yankee Stadium, and that was the first time. I trying to remember. That was the first time I went, and I actually saw the Red Sox Yankees playoff game
Yeah.
in the Yankee Stadium when I was in college as well. So
Must have been a cool experience.
it was honestly like the one time I was kind of cheering for the Yankees just a little bit, just because it was really fun and exciting, and they actually really cared. I had never been to a playoff game ever in my life before, so yeah, just kind of going back, a lot of these questions either I've never asked you, or I just don't know, or I just don't remember. Was like back to when I was born. For people wondering, it was September 15, 1982. Um, what's like one of your first memories that of me that you kind of recall?
Oh, wow, that is going back a ways. I mean, I just, I mean, I was thrilled, to have a son and to bring you home and everything. And Melissa was thrilled to have you as a brother. Um, you, believe it or not, you were a little chunky as a baby at first, um, and you had such light colored blonde hair. I was like, where did you get that? Where did that come from?
That's gone.
So yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, and you at first you were pretty shy, like around groups of people, because we lived in Utica and we'd go into Binghamton for family get-togethers or holidays or whatever, and carry you in the house, and people wanted to see you, the new baby, young kid, and boy, you would cling to me like kind of crying. Actually, some people call you Crying Ryan for a while, um, but yeah, I mean, it was just really neat to have a son and daughter, and I remember. Oh, you were in I forget what they call it. This thing that it would walk. You'd sit in it. It would walk. You'd walk around. It was on wheels. It was
Mm-hmm.
round, so
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't fall out of it or whatever. And I'd put a Nerf basket up on the wall, and it gave you Nerf. I'd try to teach you to put the Nerf basketball in the basket. You were still, like I said, you were not even walking yet or whatever.
So
Ah,
basically, you trained me to like sports. It's your fault.
oh yeah, I mean, my life was sports, so that was your life. Obviously, it had an impact. Um, Not to embarrass you, but this is like right off the tip of my head. I totally forgot. Um, Something unique you did. You crawled on your back. I have never seen another child do that, but I think I actually read at some time that that's like a sign of intelligence. I don't know, but
I'll take.
yeah, you crawled on your back, so
Hmm.
it turned out all right.
I
So
don't. I like to think so. Well, as I got older and started developing like personality, what are some of the personality traits you started to recognize in me most?
um, well, I'll tell you one thing. You just picked up things quickly. I know I remember. So when we bought our second house, I think it was like 86 or 87. So you were probably what, 4 or 5. And, Nintendo was a thing and I had a Nintendo game, and I wasn't big into video games or whatever.
Nintendo or Atari? I think it was Atari,
Oh,
right?
Atari. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It was
Yeah.
Atari. And so we had moved into our second house, and, so I was busy, work and going to school and raising kids and house and everything. And you wanted to play the Atari. It was like, oh my God, I'm too busy. It's like, I can't, I don't have the time to play. It's like, okay, I'll set it up for you, and you'll want to play, you'll try to play, you'll get frustrated, and you'll just leave it alone or whatever. You taught yourself how to play all those games. You got so freaking good, and then you'd ask me to play, and I couldn't compete with you. And like you'd be playing a baseball game, and I pitched the ball and you hit it, you'd be running around the bases. I was trying to get the ball and throw it to the right base, and you'd be running around the bases laughing at me. And that was just the beginning, because then you played other games after that. You thought it was fun to beat me. It was so easy for me to beat.
I remember the Atari. I remember those games. I don't necessarily remember running the bases and stuff, but I do remember the Atari, which I still have that in my closet. Do you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in the closet.
I hope it still works. I'd be like looking down at the control, trying to figure out what to do, and doing all the wrong stuff, and you'd be doing all the right stuff and kicking my butt. So, but you were pretty sharp. You picked up stuff, even like when you were in school. It was like subjects came easy to you. I remember being concerned, like, oh, you're not picking up good habits because you're not studying and whatever. And you did so well, it was like, well, I guess you got certain capability.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down from having a really good memory has helped me a lot through life.
That's the other thing. It's funny because now you bring these things up, and I did, because I was thinking, what are we going to talk about? I've got certain things in my head. You have a gifted memory. I don't know if you remember playing. Actually, I think it was called Memory Game or something. Mm-hmm. And they were like cards, and you had to turn them all over, and then like you would pick one, and you'd pick another one, try to match them. They didn't match. If they matched, you put them aside and got credit for it. If they didn't match, you turned them back over, and you just remembered where those cards were, and it was like you were only 3 or 4 years old, and it was like nobody could compete with you. And Melissa would be frustrated, but and that was one thing I learned is by having kids is you have different abilities or different talents, different personalities. And I think until before that, I just thought everybody could do everything if they tried, and that's not true. So Melissa got her strengths, you got your strengths. That memory game, your mother and I would go out somewhere, get a babysitter. You'd get the games out, the memory game. And, it was like no challenge for you to beat everybody. Puzzles, you'd put together puzzles without any trouble. So, yeah.
I still like to do puzzles to this day, crossword puzzles or anything. You probably don't know this, but when Kristen and I, whenever we fly somewhere, we have a bunch of crossword puzzles ready to go for our flights and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. We love puzzles. I've always loved puzzles. Something that kind of rules my life now is just being creative. I'm very creative with my job and my work and my career and all that stuff. Did you at some point notice that I was really creative and artistic as a kid?
Well, I knew you could draw real well, which was like kind of crazy for me because I have no artistic bone in my body, other than, and I think it was actually kind of came about once you got into photography, it kind of pushed me into a little bit. So there's a little bit of art in that way, but I could never draw at all. And you could look at something and just draw it real well. So, I mean, I don't know if you ever kept some of the stuff that you drew, football helmets or baseball hats, or I remember you drew a flower. Your mother was in the hospital for something.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And you drew a flower for her. It was really nice.
Yeah,
she really appreciated that. So that was pretty special. So.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've drawn. Everything's digital now. Everybody draws on the computers and stuff. But yeah, I haven't really drew in a long time. It's funny you say that because I remember. You probably don't remember this, but I remember this. I remember. I think we were at the Utica house. We had an orange carpet, right? We had an orange carpet in the living room. And I think I was drawing like one of those like the Air Force fighter jets or planes or something with you. And I think you were showing me how to shade. with a pencil. I don't.
I
You probably don't remember that, but I do.
I don't. I mean, that's nice if you do. I
Yeah.
don't. Um,
Yep. Yeah.
I
Being a
I remember at some point getting you some kind of kit for like drawing car, like race cars and stuff or whatever.
yeah.
So
I remember that.
that was just something that was you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That wasn't me. It wasn't your mother. That was something unique to you. So
What were things? Okay, so you're saying a lot of things I'm good at. What were perhaps something, one or two things that I wasn't the greatest at that you noticed? I might as well ask you that.
oh my goodness.
I mean, one thing I wasn't good at, I know from playing baseball, I wasn't the fastest. I don't have a lot of speed. I
Yeah,
couldn't run very fast.
but actually, I mean, you were a skinny little rat when we lived in Utica before we moved to Binghamton, and your grandmother fattened you up on all that Italian food. Um, so you were kind of fast back then. You played soccer. That was really neat. You were on a great soccer team when it's funny the one year it was actually I think it was co-ed. One thing I remember, every kid on that team was blonde. every every girl and every boy on that team was blonde, and I think you guys actually won like the championship or whatever. So you were always running around and whatever. Um, you got swimming lessons, so you could swim. Something you weren't good at, boy. I don't know. That's a tough one.
If there's nothing, there's nothing.
That's a tough one. Um, Maybe something will pop into my head when I'm not uh, trying not to think about it. But I mean, you were pretty sharp. Actually, like a difference between you and Melissa. Naturally, parents, you have kids, raise them, and like Melissa was like not allowed to touch the TV remote. It was like, and she was good about it. She wasn't a problem, whatever. Um, you, um, you always like got up so early in the morning, and we'd be tired. Like you'd be up by like 6, and we'd be tired and whatever. And it taught you how to use the TV remote. So you'd get up, go downstairs, and put the TV on. We could sleep, and you would just be sitting down there happy watching the TV.
Well, that reminds me of I used to wake up for Christmas every year at like 4 or 5 o'clock and try to wake you guys up. And every year I looked to see if there was presents with holes in it because I wanted a dog so bad.
Yeah.
Was I ever close to ever getting a dog for Christmas, or was it always just no
Oh
shot
my
because of
God.
mom?
I You were close with me for sure. If it was up to me, yeah, you would have had a puppy. Yeah, for sure.
Every year I look to see if there was holes in a present.
And Melissa wanted a horse.
Yeah, of
Melissa
course.
thought we just put a horse in the garage or something. Oh, yeah, I would love to have given you a puppy.
Yeah, now we have them. That's for
Yep,
sure.
yep.
I know that's we won't have to go through my entire life here, but I know that's like one of your favorite memories. I'm sure is us going to drive to get Nova and Sheena, the twin dogs that we have now, which is amazing. Which
I,
also, you go ahead.
I just showed somebody today pictures of the two of them. I just so proud. It's like they're my kids and grandkids or whatever. It's like yeah,
They're good dogs. Yeah, they're really good dogs.
and people are amazed when they see them. Like, oh my God, they're gorgeous, and it must be
Yeah.
fun and whatever. So it is. It
Well,
is.
I know that's one of your favorite moments and forever will
That,
be and everything. And
it is. I think it really strengthened our bond together,
mm-hmm.
and so that was what 2.5 years ago.
Almost three. Almost
Yeah,
3 years in September.
yeah.
Or no. Yeah, 2.5 because they were born in September. We got them in November. So yeah, 2.5 years ago.
So as many years as it was between when you were born and us getting those puppies, sitting in the back seat you were driving for a while, and I remember sitting in the back seat with him. It just brought back the feeling of bringing, you know, like Melissa and you home from the hospital when you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Well, in between those two big moments of being born and getting those dogs together, just curious, like what are some of your like favorite memories of being a dad in those years?
Oh, well, you know, we'll say like specific to you. Um, I mean, there's things that you did, and like I said, there's so many things I'm sure I won't remember, but like I got a lot of respect for you for like when um, you asked for the lead part in the Willy Wonka play.
It's third grade for people listening to, yeah, third
Third
grade.
grade,
Yeah.
and you had that thing in your mouth to like widen your jaw,
Yeah. Cause I was getting braces. Yep.
so it affected your speech, and you were like not conscious, like of getting up in front of everybody and being the lead role in the play. And I mean, your speech wasn't exactly 100% clear, and you did it. I mean, you asked for that part, right? I
Mm-hmm.
imagine you asked for
Yeah.
that part. You
Mm-hmm.
memorized.
I memorized that. And that was like, that play was probably like 2 hours, wasn't it?
It was long. It was long. We have it on video somewhere.
Yeah.
I used to try to get videos of special things you and Melissa did or whatever. So it was like that was pretty cool. Like how many kids would have had the nerve to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. Um, I mean, there's the standard graduations and things and whatever. Um, one thing, we can't have this conversation without talking sports and whatever. Let me just throw a couple things out. Um, like a special moment was I coached you in CYO basketball one year,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to hit the winning basket at the buzzer in one game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every kid's dream.
And it wasn't our ball either. I stole the inbound.
Yep, you put it in at the buzzer,
Mm-hmm.
and we won by 1 point. So it was, so that's cool that you got to have that experience. So, geez, but baseball was like the best. Like you just pitching, you just absolutely loved to pitch, and you had so much confidence in yourself. And um, I mean, I remember, being out there on the street or in the backyard or going to the baseball field and just having you pitch and working on pitching and whatever. And kind of what you were, well, when you were 9, I don't know how long we have time to talk here. When you were 9 and you played in that one league, like below Little League in Endicott.
Yeah, minor leagues, they call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure at the beginning of the league if they had a pitching machine or whatever, but anyway, when they let the kids pitch and you pitched, and the biggest thing then was having a pitcher that could at least throw strikes. Otherwise, everybody was walking around the bases and everything. And I just remember all the other parents getting so excited when you were going to pitch because you could throw strikes and we'd win. And so it was fun to hear other parents like be excited because you were going to pitch. And then the next year, you played Little League. So you were 9, 10, 11, and 12. So you would have been 10. What was your coach's name? It wasn't Mr.
Orlando.
Mr. Orlando.
Yeah.
And you would like beg him to pitch. And, I think the older kids probably kind of like laughed, like, who is this kid or whatever, And they would struggle pitching. And eventually, Mr. Orlando let you have your chance, and you came through. You'd go in and you'd throw strikes, and I mean that's what it took at that level.
I actually remember that game. I finally got my chance, and I pitched really well. It's funny, a memory that I remember was in the minor leagues. I was 9 years old. I turned that double play by myself. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. At shortstop, I was.
Who turns a double play at 9 years old?
Yeah, and that was a big play. That was a playoff game or something. Yeah, you were playing shortstop. The guy hit one to you. You got it. Stepped on second, threw it to first. Yeah, who sees a kid turn a double play at so
That's
yeah, that was
watching Cal Ripken. That's why.
pretty cool.
And a memory that comes to my mind almost immediately every time I think of baseball. Like, what were your thoughts when I threw the no hitter in high school?
Yeah, that I mean, that's that's pretty amazing. I mean, that's something you got the baseball right.
Yeah, I have the baseball. Yep.
Did you lose that for a while or
I
misplace it?
couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't find it for. Yeah, I do have it. Yep.
Yeah, how many kids can say? And that wasn't even like little league or Keno league. That was for high school. So
Mm-hmm.
through the no hitter, and the other thing I remember, if I'm right, the other team only had two players get on base. You walked both of them, but you picked them both off.
I picked them both off, so I faced the minimum. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So well, that's pretty cool. You had some big games at different leagues or different teams or whatever. I actually was trying to look it up last night because I know a while back I was able to Google it. I think you were was it American Legion post was it post 82 or what or
Mm-hmm.
there was a tournament in Oneonta.
Yeah,
I think you threw a two hitter
yeah.
something. I know there was an article in the paper. But I remember
Mm-hmm.
I Googled your name and that came up. So that was pretty cool.
It just now you
No,
googled it.
not now, but years
Oh,
ago. So
okay.
I was disappointed that I couldn't find it last night. I don't know if
I
I.
ha- I think I have that baseball too. I think I struck out like 12 or 13 or something like that. But
Oh, yeah,
yeah, I mean, a lot of it's based on sports and like, what were your thoughts when I got that job at ESPN that I wanted
well,
so
it
badly?
was your dream,
Yeah,
So that was really cool. I was really happy for you.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know I went with you on a trip. I don't know if that was for an interview or you just wanted me to go walk around
It's
and.
supposed to be for an interview, and the guy got no, yeah. So the guy had gotten snowed in or something like that wherever he was, and I had to go back. And I think you went with me. We went to New York City to go see Duke play.
Was that the same trip?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
take a train down or something.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that was pretty cool. I mean, it was your dream job.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out like I'm sure you had hoped it would. Um, but hey, you can say, you worked at
Hmm.
ESPN, whatever. That was cool.
Yeah, and there's as we talk here, there's like a lot of things I want to thank you for, as I maybe have or have not previously, and thanks for always supporting me, especially with jobs that weren't necessarily close to home. I had to move away from home and then moving down here to Raleigh. I know that's now you live here, but I know for a long time, it wasn't easy to see your kids. They were 9, 10 hours away. And mom was never a huge fan of me moving. She always gave me a hard time, but you said, hey, you got to do what's best for you. And
Yeah,
that's what I've done.
I think that's what a parent. I think that's a responsibility of a parent is to raise their kids. Kind of like to be independent and do what's best for them. You know, not be selfish and try to keep you around or yeah you're too far away or whatever. So
And
well, I got used to that drive. I was making that drive
yeah.
3 4 times a year nonstop or whatever.
And going back to um, baseball and sports and stuff, like, I probably owe you a lot of thank yous for playing catcher me in the yard all those days and being my catcher, especially when I started to throw a little harder and I threw a lot of. I know I threw a lot of curveballs. I hit you in the knees and all those. There's a lot of times I didn't feel like practicing. I just wanted to play, but you took me to the baseball field and threw me a lot of the balls over and over and over again, working on my hitting drills and stuff. Like, I don't know, I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I should, but I certainly do now. And thank you so much for doing that for me. I mean, that's dedication. You took time out of your day. Now that I'm older, I understand what that means, and you no doubt made me a better player for it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. It. I mean, that was just something that came natural. Like it's just something I wanted to do. You know, I, you and Melissa, Melissa, I would work with her on softball or basketball or, you know, swimming or whatever. I always just tried to be there for both of you and, tried to teach you anything I thought I knew how to do or, try to do the right thing or whatever. So it was fun, it was fun for me.
I mean, that's now that I'm older, that's something that is important to me is having a work life balance. So when I do have kids, I can step away from the computer, step away from work and play catch with them and kick the ball around with them and do all that kind of stuff. So um, it makes me wonder, is there anything, it probably is, but like, is there any one or two things that perhaps you wish you did differently being a dad, or something you want to give me advice on that you hope that I do differently when I have kids? I know it's
Well,
probably a hard question.
I think it's sports related and everything related is um, I think I learned too late. And maybe I learned partially by having Sheena, but it's like I I don't know if I like praised you for things you did right. You know what I'm saying? Like I think my attitude was kind of like, well, you did that right, so I don't have to tell you did that right. I'm going to work with you on the things you need to work on, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I, I think looking back, I think that was a mistake. Like I should have praised you more for the things you did right. And so because I mean, it's like what positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
You learn that with dogs and whatever. It's like, geez, I should have done that with you and Melissa. But you know, you you do what the best. It just as a parent, you try to do your best. You don't know everything, and you make mistakes and whatever. Um, so that's one of the things. Another thing is, I mean, I don't know how much I actually like told you I loved you, but I did. I mean, so don't take don't don't take it for granted that your kids assume you love them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Tell them, just tell them. Just make sure they know you love them.
Yeah. It's something I definitely plan on letting them know whenever that day happens, and you'll be a big part of that, especially now living here in Raleigh. I'm not breaking any news on this podcast because there is no news to break. Maybe one of these days, but um, I know something that the older we got, especially the older I got, the more travel became important to me. So then we started traveling. I think I don't know, I could be wrong. Did you kind of see me traveling? Like, hey, this sounds really cool. Like, I'd like to give this a shot. I mean, when did traveling, I guess, kind of like become more important to you, and then traveling with me? And then what are some of your favorite memories or thoughts on like the places that we've been?
Okay. Well, I mean, I always always try to do something with a family. For family vacation or whatever. Some of them were pretty simple. Go to the Adirondacks, go to Lake George, go to the beach. Ocean City or whatever. Um, what really um, affected me regarding travel was 9/11. Because before 9/11, my attitude was pretty much, I'll travel when I retire. But 9/11 really made me think you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to get those opportunities, so don't wait. And that's when I started um, traveling more, and then you it's only natural. you know you and Melissa, you become teenagers and whatever, and you don't want to take trips with your parents. You want to do things with your friends instead, or
Mm.
whatever. But something kind of clicked, I guess, when your mother and I, after we came home from our first cruise. I think I don't remember if that was I don't remember the year exactly, but you were in college.
Probably early 2000s. Yeah, I was in college 01 to 05. So I think it was 02 or 03 or something.
So I think we came home and we just like, we're so excited. We had such a great time. And for some reason, you and Melissa wanted to go on a cruise. So then we all went on a cruise together. Um, don't remember which one. Did we go Eastern first?
Eastern Caribbean. So like the Virgin Islands.
Um, so that must have been where we went on the snorkeling excursion with the
Mhm.
turtles and everything, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, so, I mean, that was really like a big thing, going on that cruise and everything. That was really cool. We all had a great time. And then we went on the Western Caribbean. Um, you and I went to, think, what was it called? Like Stingray Island or something, or Stingray.
Yeah, off the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and that was just you and me. That was pretty cool. I mean, that was a big thing just you and I did together.
Hmm.
So I think I started noticing a difference like in our relationship or whatever, to do stuff like that. Um, and then I'll never forget um, when we went to Alaska on a cruise, like you asked me to go on that helicopter ride on the glacier for that dog sled run.
Hmm.
And it was like, I, I never would have thought to do that, but it was like, you asked me to do that. So I'm going to do that with you. And that was really cool. I mean,
That was my number one bucket list item was to go with the sled dogs. I mean, that's why I've had Huskies for half my life now. And yeah, I
that,
mean, there was no way I was going to go there and not do that. And that was not cheap.
no,
Especially I was not making a whole lot when I was 20, 22, 23, whatever it was. But that also showed me that spending money on memories like that and excursions like that you'll never forget and possibly never have the opportunity to do again is well worth it. So um I would pay that and then some.
and, and that was such a neat experience. The whole thing, the helicopter ride was so cool.
Mhm.
Doing the dog sled run, seeing the dogs get excited, to be the ones to pull the sled and everything. Um, One of my favorite pictures I've ever taken, I have framed. I have it, downstairs in my dining room of being up there on that dog sled run with the
Mhm.
mountains. Just it was an absolutely cool experience. It was like I never would have had it if you didn't ask me to go on it with you. So
Mhm. And then a few other trips we took was what Iceland. We did Banff. We did travel all over Utah to the was it the Grand? I don't know if the Grand Canyon is part of that, but ended up in Vegas. Trying to think, was there any others? And like, what were some of your favorite moments of those?
well, I got to tell you, I mean, those were all like great trips with experiencing amazing things. Like so, our trip to Iceland um, wasn't totally smooth. Um,
Yeah, not our fault.
yeah, um, I tried to be there for you, so that um, you know.
Just to let the audience know, yeah, 2 days into my trip to Iceland, I got laid off from my job via email. I found out when I couldn't log into my work email and I got my Gmail saying I just got laid off. So I was annoyed as it was, and two, I was so concerned about where the hell my money was going to come from for this trip, and Iceland isn't cheap. So I was really bummed. And I was telling Kristen we just went to Iceland a couple months ago, and I said, you made me feel so much better when I got laid off. Like you showed empathy to me. You related to that, and you said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. We'll just have a good time here." And that meant a lot to me, and I was able to relax after that and figure out everything when I got home.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I could see the devastation. You were devastated. It was like, hey, this because that was our first trip together, and I was looking forward to that so much. It's like we can't let anything ruin it. So
Hmm.
It was a little rough, but then, I mean, look how great it got at the end to see the Northern Lights.
Hmm.
It's just, so I got to see the Northern Lights with you. So that was really cool.
Hmm.
It was really neat that first night we saw them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You weren't gonna go. It's amazing in life how things happen. I mean, because you weren't gonna go, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna go anyway," because everybody was so nice, and there were going to be some of the people out there. And I started walking out there to where we were the night before to look for them. And there was a couple, I forget, I don't know if they were from England or where they were from. And they were walking back, and I said to them, I said, "Oh, you gave up already?" And they go, "No, they're out."
Mm.
I was like, what do I do? Do I go back and get Ryan and maybe miss him? We neither of them see us, or do I go? And they said that they would go get you.
Mm.
So
And
I
they
went.
knocked on my door, and I changed into my jackets and all that stuff and ran like a mile in the
Yeah.
pure dark.
But what's really amazing about that though is we stopped somewhere during the day. There were like salt columns or whatever. It wasn't a big stop, but it was kind of neat. And we were all just walking as a group, and on the snow. And that girl, um, at one point, like her foot just like went through the snow, like up to her knee. I mean, she had no idea that was going to happen. Or whatever, her leg was stuck in the snow, and I was like behind her when it happened. So I helped her get out of the snow, with her husband. And so it was like, I just don't think it was coincidence that
Mm.
they're the ones that I ran into that told me the Northern Lights were out and they went and got you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you do a good deed and look what happens. It's just
I would have been so mad because we waited the night before, nothing happened, and like on the KPI meter, it was like a 2 out of 10. It was like, I'm not gonna go back out there. It's freezing cold. It doesn't seem like it's gonna happen, and it happened. And then the following night was the most insane
yeah.
Northern Lights, I think, of the entire year in Iceland. It was incredible. That was I'll never forget that for sure.
I had I had people I worked with that knew I was over there and I wanted to see them. And like this one guy's kind of like a nerdy guy or whatever, and he knew something was going on, like with the solar flares, you know. So he knew there was a chance, and I called work or whatever, let them know, and they were so happy, that I got to see it. So, but but so we did like the stuff. We did the Blue Lagoon. That was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
But what made the trip special to me was um, where that waterfall was.
Mm-hmm.
You asked if I wanted to hike up to the top with you. So
Mm-hmm.
that was your asking me. Plus, you're not really good with heights or whatever. And, I mean, that trail was not too bad, but I mean, it was like out on the edge, a little bit or whatever. And, so you went up that trail to do that with me. And I just thought that was that was really neat that you asked me to do that. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
special memory that I have. And then
Yeah.
I mean, a similar one um, was at Zion in
Mm-hmm.
Utah. I mean, we had fantastic hikes and that was so cool and everything. But I think it was the first night in Zion. Um, you had asked like, "Hey, let's just take a drive back through the park, whatever," because we drove through the park to get to our hotel. And I don't know if we had dinner or something to eat. And then so we went back into that road that goes through the park. And we pulled over somewhere. We just hung out. Like there was like really neat. What it was kind of like sandstone or whatever on
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
hill, and we were just kind of hanging out there and getting some pictures and whatever. And so I don't know if I ever told you, like those are those are what I remember. You know, I mean, like the other stuff, all the millions of tourists experience. You know, the hike through the canyons and you know Angel's Landing and different things. But it was the little things that you asked to do with me that made it special. So.
And we've been to some cool places. I mean, Banff was gorgeous, and like you said, all throughout Utah was awesome.
You found, I think somebody blog. I had never heard of Antelope Canyon before. That may be the single neatest experience I've ever. That just blew my mind. That was just so unbelievable in there. You know, when I saw pictures before we went, I thought maybe they were photoshopped, but they didn't have to be those pictures. I mean, that place was incredible. So that was cool. You know, and then we went kayaking on Lake Powell.
That's right. Yeah, we did. We kayaked at Moraine Lake too, just to go back to Banff, which was awesome. Because we're going back to Banff in October, as you know. I'm not going to be able to do that because the water is going to be like frozen over. They don't offer it, so I'm glad we got.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. We have those experiences. Yeah, and then we went out on that glacier where we weren't supposed to be on. You know, there were signs.
We weren't supposed to be on that? I didn't know that.
There were signs that said, do not go beyond here.
Oh,
there was a little chain lake, and it was like, well, you know, if nobody's going to stop us, you know, I mean, who knows? You know, that was a neat experience. Go out there and walk around.
Do you wish that you went further on the Narrows Trail in Utah?
Well, Zion? I do. I mean, it was the smart thing. I mean, when we were on the bus, you know, to go there, you know, and people are like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, we're going to the Narrows. And people are like, you're going to the Narrows today? Because there was a meter, and it was like on the highest risk level because there were threats of storms. And if it rained anywhere in that canyon, that water would have just gushed through there. So unfortunately, it didn't even rain that day. I would have felt better if it had rained some or whatever. But so it's on my mental bucket list
to
go back and complete that hike sometime.
Complete it? I don't know if, I mean, isn't that forever? I mean, that's a long hike, isn't it? I don't know. Could be wrong.
Well, I mean, it's lengthy, but at least go in, like what's the section called? The subway or something. So I definitely would want to go back there and go in farther because that was neat. So
noted. For people that are listening, they don't know what the Narrows are. It's in Zion. It's in a canyon. You're hiking in a canyon, but you're in water. There's water that's flowing through the canyons, and it's a pretty famous hike. You have hiking poles to get through the water. There's some spots that are really deep that go up to your waist or possibly even chest too. It was a really unique experience. I've never done anything like that before.
And the canyons just go straight up. It's narrow. It's really neat. It's a very
It's a slot canyon basically with water in between. You're just walking through the water, so you're going to get soaked. It was pretty great.
That trip was just one highlight after another. You know, Bryce Canyon was just so neat to hike through. Everything just went so well. You know, and there was like rain in the forecast, but it just kept going away from us or whatever. There was like a hurricane came in from the west coast. It's like, oh my God, a hurricane's going to come in and affect the weather on our vacation, but it just kept away from us. You know, I saw the neatest rainbow I think I've ever seen when we left Zion.
Yeah,
we were driving to Page, Arizona. I got like, you know, you can see that rainbow from one end to the other or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I know we haven't done as many travels these last few years because I got married and, you know, Kristen. And I mean, I will say, obviously, Kristen and I have gone to places that we've been. It's important to me. I had such a good time with you. I wanted to bring her. So I'm happy I've been able to do that. And, you know, trust me, it's on my radar to do more travels with you. I know we've gone to Orioles games. We'll continue to do that for tradition. And I was happy I got to experience Sedona with you. If you want to chime in on my big wedding last year. I'm obviously happy we got to do Sedona together, and it was for my wedding. So
Let's get to that in a minute. I don't want to overlook my trip to Alaska.
yeah, okay.
That was 2021. Okay, right, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was really not on my radar. Although we had a great trip when we went on our cruise. You got me airplane tickets to go there for as like a thank you for watching your dogs. I think.
Yeah. So what happened was I had a good amount of Delta miles, and I got an email. You can fly to Alaska from Raleigh, where we were, for X amount of miles. And I said, Kristen, like we got to go. We have to take advantage of this. We have to go. And when you said yes to watching the dogs, I was like, well, I gotta pay my dad back somehow, some way. And I said, I know you've liked Alaska. We've talked about it a few times. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll use even more miles to give you a thank you if you want to go after us, and we'll watch your dog. So it's exactly what happened. You went to Alaska like 2 weeks after we got home. So yeah, keep going.
It wasn't even 2 weeks. It
No.
was pretty quick. And that was an incredible experience. That's the first time I ever traveled alone, like something like that. Like I've done business trips, or I've taken extended business trips, so I could have some fun on my own time or whatever. But to do a trip like that on my own was one heck of an experience, and it's like, to me now, I'm not afraid to go on other trips myself. And I just met everybody was amazing. The people that lived there were amazing. The people that were there on their vacations were amazing. Um, I just loved. I loved it. To see the wild, like the moose or whatever. And um, I can't think of the park. What's the big park?
Oh, Denali.
Denali. To go on the glacier, to rappel down the glacier, or whatever. That was really cool.
So we gave you a blueprint basically when you got back of these are the things to do and these are the things not to do. And you probably, we had a great trip, but you probably had an even better trip because you avoided some of the things that we didn't care for.
Well, unfortunately, so that was like middle of September or whatever. Some things had been like closing down. Mm-hmm. So I got to go on a great glacier trek, but yours was better, but yours was no longer offered. But I'm not complaining. I had a great experience. But I can always thank you, because you had told me, well, maybe you don't want to go up to Fairbanks. Maybe it's not worth going all the way up there and to do something else. And that's when I elected to go on the bear viewing tour that I did. And that's one of the highlights of my life. That was just incredible. That was the highlight of that trip, and one of the favorite things I've ever done. And it was just a perfect day, just a perfect experience, and just to see the bear in their natural habitat. And that's something I've gotten to experience that you haven't yet. So hopefully you'll get a chance to do that.
Well, I ran into a bear a little too close for comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have to worry about that. My experience was actually, we were on boats, they drove you around, but they drove you up pretty close. They drove you on the lake, and it was a gorgeous lake. It was just, everything was just so perfect about that day. That was just so cool. And like I said, the thing that showed me was it could be cool to travel by yourself, because it gives you flexibility too.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a hike with some people in Denali that I just met by chance. You drive through Denali, you see cars on the side of the road, you stop, you get out to see what they're looking at. Maybe there's bear, maybe there's moose or whatever. This couple pulled over. There's nothing to look at that time. And I did something I normally wouldn't do. I asked them if they were going to go on a hike. because, like, I didn't want to be out hiking around certain trails with bear by myself or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me what hike they were going on to. And I asked if I could go with them, and they said, yeah, sure. And so I met some really nice people and got to go on a great hike. It's just people there's a lot of really wonderful, nice people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to go on a trip to Ireland by myself in September, going on a tour, that I'm expecting that to be really cool,
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
It's not going to be a typical tour. It's a small group, and they do it for like people that like the outdoors. So there's hiking and biking and kayaking. So I'm really looking forward to it. Not that I necessarily choose to travel by myself, but that's the way things are right now. But I'm gonna.
There's nothing wrong with it. I think people frown
get out there
it.
and experience life. You're never too old. I'm. It took me a while, but I'm really starting to enjoy retirement now. So it's like, blessings in disguise. I got laid off before I was going to retire, but look how my life has changed. I got Sheena,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and she's such a joy. And I'm able to, travel around, do things that I wouldn't have been able to do. So, some of that comes from you, your podcast, growth and travel and experience and whatever. So,
I know you said
advice,
I know you said before we get to Sedona, and let's talk about that in a moment, but you just brought up my podcast. Out of curiosity, like, what were your thoughts when I said I was going to do a podcast? And now 3 years later, what are your thoughts of the podcast itself?
I think that's pretty cool that you had the guts to do, the courage to do that, certainly wasn't going to discourage you in any way. One thing I'll say that I wanted to make sure I hope to remember to say during this podcast is, as parents, your mother and I, we try to bring you up, you and Melissa, the best we can, give you opportunities or whatever, raise you with values and try to do the right thing. But, so we get you through high school, and, it's up to you. What are you going to do in college or whatever? That's your big decision and your choice. And you chose your career path in graphic design. And I just give you all the credit in the world, because you are who you are because of yourself, your determination and what you've taken on yourself. Because, like, it wasn't my background. It wasn't like I knew anybody in that field and said, hey, my son wants to be a graphic artist, can you give him this job or whatever? Everything you've accomplished, you can take credit for. And, your podcast is just something else that you've done and you do real well. And I enjoy listening to your podcast. I might be biased. I listen to your podcast more than any other.
Number one fan.
I like your style. I picture you could have like a TV show with guests. I think you really build up a good rapport with people. It's not like you have like this list that you run down. Okay, we got that question. What's the next question? What's the next question, or whatever. You take the time to build up a rapport. And I think, like, you've made some, good friends and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it, so.
It's been quite the experience, and I appreciate you listening to every episode. That means a lot to me. And yeah, the interview style, I didn't know how to interview anybody. I kind of learned that in the fly. So that is something I kind of taught myself, and just to learn to become a better interviewer and listening to other people's podcasts. And it's like, what do I like about theirs and what don't I like about theirs? And I tend to like them when they're just more conversations, just having fun and not just going down a list of bullet points. That's not really a conversation to me. So I appreciate that.
No, I enjoy it, and you have a lot of good guests, a lot of good topics. You can learn a lot. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's definitely taught me a
I
lot for
really
sure.
I relate to them. So
That's great. Well, I know we're hopping around a lot here, and I tend to do that in a lot of episodes. But yeah, kind of let's go back to Sedona. Let's talk about it. I
yeah,
brought it up before. You
you
said hold
got
on, but let's do it.
you got to go back to Sedona. So um, okay, so that kind of starts. And I was lucky to be there Thanksgiving when you proposed to Kristen, and you
That's right. I kicked you out of the house. That's right.
did.
You were staying with me that week. People listening, I told my dad I was going to propose. Can you please not stay here that night?
So I stayed at Uncle Jamie's house, which was nice. I mean, I'm very welcome there, so that wasn't a problem at all. Um, Maybe one thing, because I blew the surprise, like I knew you were going to ask her to marry or whatever. But anyway, um, but I stuck around for I think a couple of weeks after that, and you and Chris and I were already starting to plan things like, okay, where are the possibilities of where to go and whatever. I know Banff, Canada, I think was probably your number one choice if it wasn't for COVID. And
Yep.
um, I don't remember exactly how Sedona came up, but if it was a friend of Kristen or somebody, however Sedona came up, I was right there to support that idea because I was there 2012, I think it was, and I loved it, and I couldn't wait to go back someday. So it was like, oh wow, we get to go back to Sedona. And when your mother and I were there, and we were on a hike, at least one hike, and people asked, "Have you been to the Enchantment Resort yet?" And I said, "No, didn't know anything about it." And he said, "You got to go." He said, "Just go for lunch or whatever, and you'll love it." And we went. And it was a really special place. It was really nice. And also, who knew that someday, you'd be getting married there? That's crazy. But
I had no idea. Before we go any further with that, like, what were your thoughts that I was finally at the age of what, 30? I think 38 was finally proposing. So it took freaking long enough. Like, what were your
well,
thoughts about that and thoughts on it being Kristen?
well, I I fell in love with Kristen right away. um, you okay? I mean, that was a special day. That um, when I met Kristen was the day we brought the dogs home.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
I
The
don't think
puppies.
I don't think I even knew you were dating her. I think it was on the way back from West Virginia that you said, "Oh, by the way, Kristen's going to be there. She's making us dinner and whatever." At least this is how I remember, you know. So,
It was about 5 or 6 weeks into me dating her. I tend to keep things close to the chest unless I know it's something
yeah.
worth talking about. Yeah.
So, but we got back to your house with those puppies, and I don't think it took Kristen 10 seconds to get down on the floor with them. And it was like wow, it just seemed like there was something special between you and her. Like she loved those puppies, and I know
Mm.
how much Coda and Raven meant to you and whatever. So, um, and then we sat down. She cooked some meal from scratch, like she always does, which was really good. Don't know what it was. I felt totally comfortable talking to Kristen. Thought it was kind of amazing. Some common things like just a couple months earlier, I had been to. I came in town for Uncle Jamie's wedding, during that trip, I went to the ocean, and I just happened to pick Oak. Is it Oak or Oaks Island? To
Oak Island, yeah. Yep.
Island, and I had a real nice couple of days there. And then after the wedding, I instead of going home, I went to Boone and I hiked Grandfather Mountain. And and one thing I like to do when I travel, if there's like a university or whatever, I always like to kind of check them out or whatever. So I went over there to App State and checked out some of the campus, and we get talking over dinner and find out that Kristen went to App State.
She loves Boone.
She had just climbed Grandfather Mountain, and her parents have a place at Oak Island. It was like, wow, those are three coincidences. There's something in the air or whatever. So anyway, but I mean, you it took you a while, but I think undoubtedly you found the right person for you. You know.
Mm. I agree. It took forever, but that's the consensus with you, Mom, and Melissa, and all my family and friends when it comes to Kristen. It's like I finally did find the right one, and I imagine probably a proud moment for you, being a dad, of finally get to celebrate that.
Yeah, and I like the sound of saying I have a daughter-in-law.
Yeah, yeah.
So the wedding, so that I was like, all right, get to go to Sedona, and but your wedding, that that was like a fairy tale wedding.
Mm.
You know what that was like? Everything was just amazing about it, and I mean, you and Kristen just that was like so special. The two of you just made that such an event. Not only for everybody else, but for the two of you. It's just.
What's like the most memorable thing of that wedding, from your perspective?
Your vows.
Yeah. Were we audible? Could people hear us properly? I don't think I've ever asked that.
I was in the front. I didn't have any trouble hearing.
Okay. We hooked up the microphone.
When I say your vows, I mean both yours and Kristen's.
Yeah.
Because that was really different for me. I'm used to the traditional church wedding or whatever. And you don't talk like that or whatever. So that was really personable. And that was my favorite wedding I've been to. That was, that just, I never could have imagined anything like that.
We couldn't duplicate it. If we had to plan it again and again and again and again, we could never duplicate what happened. That was the best. I know it's biased, but it's true.
It was, there's just so many things. There were just like casual things that were great, like the gathering, like after your rehearsal, back at the Airbnb. That was just a great experience. Like everybody, I think, just felt totally comfortable with everybody.
Mm-hmm. And the hikes in between, so we'd go to hike on one day and the next day, and it was great.
Yeah, we got to do that great hike up Cathedral Rock and whatever. The Jeep tour, the Peak Jeep tour was great. I mean, that was like a wedding anybody was at won't forget.
Yeah, it was incredible. I know I've kind of kept you probably long enough, and we keep talking and talking and talking. I think one thing that I want to hit on that still means the world to me and will always mean the world to me is I don't think people understand when I bring up Coda on this podcast what she meant to me personally. And the one person in the world that understood that was you. Wanting a dog for so long, and I finally got my husky at 22 years old, and I had her for 15 and a half years. And yeah, I had a really hard time those last few months before she passed, and um, that was probably the hardest week of my life. And I said, I remember calling you saying she's not doing well. She's not doing well. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And you dropped everything. I don't even know what you were doing. You dropped everything in your life, got in the car, and just drove immediately 9 to 10 hours. Didn't even question it. Didn't think about it. Um, the next day was the worst day ever. And you just kind of hung around the house for whenever I needed you. You saw me crying, screaming, whatever. And you said, "Hey, I'll be here as long as you need me to." And I think you were end up here for like, I don't know, 10 to 14 days, something like that. Um, as terrible as that event was, I'll never forget that you did that for me. So you just literally hopped in your car and just drove 9, 10 hours. And I hope I do that for my kids. I mean, you've kind of set that standard for me. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for showing me that that's what a father that loves his son does for him when he needs him. Because I really needed you. So
uh, choked up.
yeah,
I'm glad you waited this long to bring it. She was special.
yeah.
And I was always thankful when you would let me have her for a couple of days or a week, or,
I never wanted to let her go. Yeah, she was my best buddy.
sometimes you maybe had a business trip or something. Sometimes you just wanted a little bit of a break, and it was like, oh my God, I get Coda for a couple of days. Oh, I just love Coda. Um,
I mean, I know that she was the dog we both wanted.
yeah, I'll never forget at one point, because like uh, I'd thought so many times about getting a boat, and I never had a boat. It's like I always kind of justified not having a boat. We had a house with a pool. We had, my family had the cottage on the lake. It was like, I don't need a boat. And then Melissa got the boat, and I remember one day I was driving down the highway to take the boat somewhere to have it stored for the winter. So I'm driving down the highway, and I got Coda in the back seat and Melissa's boat behind me. It was like, I'm getting to live through my kids. Um, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, Coda was special. And that was the toughest thing I've ever had to experience, because for Coda and for you, I saw how much it hurt.
Yeah, and still does. It still does. I mean, I'm one of the things I questioned big time was getting a puppy so quickly after, and I don't regret that at
Yeah,
all.
you that wasn't your plan. That I remember. At least you were going to wait a little bit.
Mm.
What was it, like 3 days later? And
Yeah, we put it. Yeah, not that we got them, but that kind
yeah,
of like we picked them out and contacted them and said, "Yeah,
reader online and saw those cute puppies. And I remember uh, just kind of coincidentally. So I was renting a place, and my lease said no pets, and so I started looking around a little bit to see if I could find a place to move that would allow dogs. And I hadn't found one yet, but I remember you saying, "When are you going to be ready to get your puppy?" And I said, "Right now." and um, and we found him, and we put our deposits, and it was like getting a dog, and I'm living in a place that doesn't allow dogs. Well, I'll figure it out.
best one
Like,
of the best decisions ever." I
yeah,
needed that positive. I needed something to look forward to. I couldn't just. I mean, I needed to sit in grief, and I continued to do that. But it was I had a reason to wake up and like a new reason to smile and be happy in the energy of a puppy and walking two dogs for years down to walking one just felt so different and empty to me
Yeah.
that it just reminded me every day there was a missing piece. And I knew that'd be incredibly difficult for me.
Well, I think it's just freaking amazing that we got sister puppies, So
Yep.
it's a bond, it's a special bond that we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because Sheena's sitting on the ottoman here by the window. She never does this.
Mm,
So I'm guessing she's only doing it because she hears your voice.
perhaps. So as we wrap this up, another special bond that we brought up is the Orioles. So are we making a pact live that if they go to the World Series, are we going to a World Series game in Camden Yards?
I'd say, um, I'd say, yeah. I mean, what the hell? I mean, you only live once, and that would really be special. And certainly waited a long enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So
They got to make it though. We'll
yep,
see.
yeah. Well, chances are getting better.
Finally,
So
finally. Well, as we wrap this up, I want to give you the opportunity. Like I said, I'm looking to possibly start a family with Kristen, as you know. Like any final words of advice that you would like to pass down to me to make sure that I do for my kids.
um, just um, you know, be there. Just be the best father you can. You're gonna make mistakes. Everybody does. There's no perfect parent. Hopefully, you learn from some of my mistakes. Make sure they know you love them. Um, praise them for the little things that they do right. Um, probably do a better job of separating stress from work from your home life. You know, um, I don't know. Just, I mean, I think you're going to be a great father because, like I said, I listen to your podcast. I've gotten to know you by listening to your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So you learned a lot, and you really grown into a great person. Really, really proud to call you my son.
Thanks, Dan. I'm proud to call you my dad. I know there's things we didn't touch on, and that we can leave them at that. But I know you've done a lot of growing these last few years too, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, um, life's not necessarily easy. You just gotta
Mm.
find your way through. Work at it. You got to work at it. People say you got to do the work.
I think
Find
we can. I think we
find good
can.
resources, whether you find it through religion, the podcast, books, counseling, wherever you find it, or all those places. Um, it takes effort.
I mean, I think we can both say we probably wish things were perhaps slightly different with the family situation and all that or whatever. But I will say, Kristen and I are happy that you are here in Raleigh, just 10, 15 minutes away. And now we get to see you more often. We get to make more memories coming up in the future.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Um, I don't want to go too far on that rabbit hole, but yeah, I just want to thank you for the way you've um, treated me through the tough last couple of years through the divorce. In some ways, I think it brought us closer together. Um, I'll never forget when we were in Banff and we took that ride up that road and we went out on that glacier. And, that was a difficult time. That was like immediately after we filed for divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I felt like I had the most meaningful conversation with you, you know, just opening up and talking. I mean, that trip could have been a disaster, but we had a great time. I think you showed your maturity. I think we opened up some channels of communication that I never experienced with my father. So
I would agree.
for going to the counseling with me and being there for me, So one thing, maybe people, again, it's truly now for me. I don't know how many people think like of their father, like I'm your father, but I'm a person. So I have my fears, my emotions, my desires, my, dreams or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm not just your father. I'm a person. And I think we have a great relationship. So.
And I plan on it only getting better for decades and decades. We're not done yet.
If you have a son, are you gonna raise your son an Orioles fan?
Yeah, he's gonna have to go through the same. I mean, it's on our daughter. I'm gonna have to go through the same misery I went through, but hopefully, we get to see a World Series when they remember it.
Yeah,
that'd be the best.
and we've had some great, weekends or trips there to the stadium too. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, all right, Dad. We can wrap this up, but I just want to say Happy Father's Day. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad I have this podcast forever to listen to. You can always listen to whatever you want. And for people to get to know me and know you, my family, where I came from, and how I grew up, and just more about me, where this podcast came from, and all that. So I'm glad we got to do this. So, Dad, I want to say Happy Father's Day, and I do love you.
Thanks. I love you too. And I mean, it just goes to show what kind of person you are. You asked me to do this,
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. How many people ask their father to do a podcast with them?
So. Yeah. Well, maybe next year we do part 2.
Yeah, with a little kid running around.
Hopefully not running at that point, but we'll see.
Well, that's true.
All right. Well, thanks, Dad. And you have to listen to this episode. You listen to all of them. You can't skip this one.
Yep, that's true. So thanks again, Ryan. Love you.
Welcome. You too.